What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem and welcome to my Workbench. This is a second Workbench update video. And if you haven't seen the first one, don't worry. I don't think anybody really has. And that's okay. It's still on the channel. You can always check it out. I'll do a bit of a recap of what's all going on here. But if you want to see specifically what's going on with this, what I call mud mixture and what I use it for on the model, you have to check out part one. In any case, what you're looking at is a Battletech 1/60th scale classic Timberwolf. Now, this isn't made by anybody officially. This isn't made at all. I had to basically, go on the internet, source what I needed, and then basically make it myself via the powers of modern technology, right? So that's what I did. And I did this because I never was able to get my hands on the ArmorCast Timberwolf, the big one back in the day. I had a chance, I never did. So this is kind of like a chance to have that, although it's not that, it's close enough. Anyways, this is a plastic filament model, and it's 1/60th scale, like I said. And the plan here is to paint it up and share the experience with you over a series of parts showcasing, the Workbench. So that's the idea. I have a 1/285th, which is 6mm, I believe, 6 or 8mm, around there, classic Battlemaster model for the standard Battletech miniature game. I really like the classic design, and it stands decently tall for what it is, right, given its scale. But you can see it's quite different in terms of the 1/60th. So quite a big jump up from 1/285th to 1/60th scale here. So with that said, in the first part, the model was not even fully base coated. Parts of it were, every part was partially base coated. And that's where I was at. So for that, I went ahead and I completed the base coating and I put a wash on the model. I also, as an update for the Workbench itself, updated my lighting situation. If you watch part one, the lighting isn't that good. And that's the lighting I would work with. And it worked well for its time and what I needed, and at that time was predominantly miniature wargaming scale stuff, like 25, 28mm style stuff. And the lighting was fine for that. But for something this big, I wanted to really be able to flood the Workbench with light. And so I upgraded my lighting situation. I'm really pleased with it. It works well for actually painting, and it works well for also the camera. So that's doubly nice. So that's another update. Anyways, with that said, before going into a bit more about the shading process here, the goal is to have a mech that is inspired by color scheme wise the Timberwolf from the Mech Commander 1 intro cutscene. The one that they fight in the intro for Mech Commander 1. That scheme I've always really liked. And that looks more of almost like a pure white. But instead, what I'm aiming to do is a super light gray near white type of light gray, and then the red and other accent colors to go along with it. I'm also not looking to have this be a factory fresh paint job either. I'm not going to do heavy weathering, but it is going to look, like it's been used and taken care of, right? So with that said, the gray base coat helps with that as I hit the light a little bit, but didn't really affect the lighting itself because I'm clumsy. Anyways, this gray base coat is going to help build up that gray primary color in later steps. And I went ahead and I washed it after getting everything coated in gray. Now, when I say wash, is I took something that you can call a shade or a wash, or there are also inks that can work for this, and I applied it all over the model. This is a technique that both scale modeling and miniature wargaming both use, but I just feel more at home with it as a miniature wargaming kind of technique. But both scale models and mini wargaming miniatures use this technique. And in this case it's black, and I used Nuln Oil Gloss wash. It doesn't have to be gloss to do this, by the way. It's just what I had on hand. The idea is you get it into the recesses of the model, into the panel lines and whatnot, and it really helps it pop, which it does. It's going to slightly stain the flat surfaces, especially if you don't really pay attention to it in this drying process. And in some cases, you might even get a little bit of pooling to happen, like I have here on some other parts. But I'm not too worried about that for what I'm doing. You want to try and mitigate it, of course, but it's not the end of the world if it happens. And the wash really helps you pick out the details. Now, what I really like about it is that it's kind of talent in a bottle is its nickname. And it really does help get a very quick, efficient way to get the panel lines popping a little bit and get the recesses darker to help you with your highlighting process and whatever else. It is a dirty technique in terms of making the model look dirty, and it's a technique that even if you're not looking for a dirty finish, it's still worth doing, and you should definitely trust the process. If you're newer to painting upscale models or miniatures or whatever, and you want to try shading, just don't let the actual wash pool on the model anywhere. Pay attention to that. Don't put too much on. Let it dry, come back, put a second coat if you need it or whatever. But trust the process if you're going to do it, because once you start building up your colors from there and doing all the other processes, it's going to really help the model look great. In any case, as you can see, it's all over everything. Even, of course, the parts that are not going to be gray, because that's okay. It's not the end of the world. That's why it's a messy process. This is not something you would necessarily do towards the end once you have everything colored how you want it. This is like a early stage process. And the last thing I did to get to this stage is I went ahead and I took the inside of the top of the cockpit here, and I took Vallejo, oh no, I'm not saying it right, black gray acrylic paint, and I painted it in on the underside here. I just did this to block it in so you don't pay attention to it. It's just there. It's not meant to have any detail on it. It's not really even meant to be seen technically. But when I was messing around with the torso and the cockpit here, this sits very nicely on there without needing any glue. In fact, it can be pretty sturdy at times, where you're not really going to need to worry about it just falling off. So I want to leave it removable because this interior detail I do plan to paint. And might as well have it visible, or the ability to be visible by taking the canopy off. So that's what I'm doing. And that's why it's black gray underneath. And here we are. So with that said, it's looking a little messy, a little disheveled, a little stained. That's okay. The next step is another messy step, and it's going to be dry brushing this model up. So I'm going to do a series of dry brushings in gray up to a almost white, really trying to make the model feel super pale gray, near white style of gray for the main color. And I'm going to do that through a series of dry brushes, which is where you nearly wipe off all the paint off your brush, and you just kind of, gently apply it to the model, and it kind of catches, but I'm going to be a little more vigorous with it to a near overbrush standard for the first couple. But through building up those layers, it'll kind of give a natural highlight to certain areas, and will really help the finish, I feel, for a mech in this case, with the armor plating being this super light gray, but also not purely like one tone. I think it'll look quite nice, almost smoky, but much closer to near white style of that. In that process, you might lose some of the panel lining that the shading has done, for example. That's okay. You can come back with multiple different products and techniques to get that back, so don't freak out in your own models if that happens. Now, I'm not going to just dry brush up. I'm also going to start blocking in the accent colors. This is going to be inspired by the the Mech Commander 1 intro Timberwolf, right? Timberwolf from the intro. So I'm going to block in red, like on the legs here, on the cockpit area, on the torso, on the arms. I'm also going to block in yellow for the missile pods, just to make them pop a bit more. I'm going to block in the interior colors. And when I say block in, I'm going to just apply them without any worry of shading or highlighting and really building it up to look nice. It's just going to be kind of flat monotone and feel a bit odd, but it's more or less just your foundation for where you'll be doing your magic with building up and layering and highlighting whatever else to really make the color pop. So that is the proposed steps I'm going to do for this stage of painting it. So the next Workbench update, in no later than 2 weeks time from this one, should hopefully have a little bit more colorful mech for your viewing pleasure, if you will. And in that part, I'll also showcase the base it's going to be standing on. It's nothing fancy, it's just mostly there to help it stand securely. Not that it should need that much help, but I'll take any help I can get when you just have it on display, like on a shelf. So I'll showcase that also for the size of it in the next video. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in and stopping by. If you're still watching this, I appreciate you. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this 1/60th scale project. And keep in mind, once this one's done, I have a much bigger project that's 1/60th scale in mind. So I'm gonna go kind of crazy after this one. And let me know if you have anything you're working on for yourself on the Workbench. If you do, let me know what it is, Battletech or otherwise. And until next time, take care.